Hello, everybody, and welcome to the May 4th, 5:30 meeting for the Parks and Forestry Committee meeting. I'm the chair, Sean Murphy. I guess we should take attendance first. Correct.
Sean, you do it.
Yeah,
Sean, you do it.
Okay, I'm here, so I will mark myself there. Brian McCann. Here. Lindsay Stout.
Yes.
Doug Hainham is not here yet, but that gives us 3 of the 4, so we still do have a quorum. The topic of tonight's, other people in attendance, by the way, are Mayor Mark Fry, Patrick Richardson, Joe Shaw, who we'll be hearing from in just a little bit, Claudia Wachowski, Leslie Brining, Laura Smith, and then there are 3 folks visiting inside the audience. And Mary Westfall, sorry. Sorry, Mary, I didn't mean to pass you. Thank you. So anyway, so the topic of tonight's meeting is green waste, yard waste program, and we are gonna turn that over to Mr. Shaw to walk us through his program.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy, appreciate it. Good evening, members of council, mayor. Appreciate the opportunity to come and talk about green yard waste another time here. I was last year in September, you guys remember, right before a budgeting process. At that time, the way we were looking at this was budgeting for a truck purchase in our 26 capital improvement budget. We had 2 options we were kind of looking at. One was a front loader with toters, and the other one was a rear loader type system that we currently have in the operation. And so at the time, privatization was not a part of the equation. We had not received a whole lot of interest, even though we had solicited it from a couple of private entities at that time, but nonetheless, we wanted to make sure our budget was appropriately set for a truck purchase in case that was the direction that we went. So fast forward to now, what has changed, and I'll walk through some of that here, but privatization was something that did become interested to a couple of parties as we were continuing to shop and do our due diligence on the truck purchase. So what we'll go through is just a review of what we want to get, our goals with the program, give you some statistics, which is kind of new for you guys. We actually did a lot of data collection on the existing operation to learn more about it, to make sure we were making a proper choice. And then I'll go through the 3 options that we reviewed leading up to the end of this. So privatization, option 1. City provided for options 2 and 3, but the differences between the 2. Option 2 would be a single man front loader with toter, which is kind of what we were looking at last year. And then option 3 going back to what we do right now, which is a 2-man operation with a rear loader truck. Okay. We'll go through some expense analysis on this towards the end, and then give you kind of our recommendations as we want to move forward. So the data dig was cool, and I'm going to be excited to give you some information on that because it's very important. So privatization versus city provided cost effectiveness. We did take a look at that, who could do it better, so to speak. City provided toter only service, provided some review and some plausibility that goes with that. And I'll get into that a little bit. We found some kind of fatal flaws in the front loader system that it's important to make sure we go over. And then potential parks and forestry reallocation of resources. So the idea was, is there a way to take these resources that we have in parks and forestry, instead of using 2 people, reduce it down to 1, and maybe use that other person to help with beautification efforts and different things in town. So statistics was the cool part here. I know maybe not for everybody, but I'm an engineer, so statistics is cool. So just to give you an idea, I want a little quick show of hands. Who uses our green yard waste program on council? 1, 2, 3. No, 4. So we have about more than half that use it, some that don't. So I think it is worth going into what this program actually is for those that don't use it. So let's go through that a little bit. So what we offer is bi-weekly collection service that runs April 1st through November 1st. It's a call-in only service from December through March. So once a week, we will go through in those winter months and we will do a collection. You put your bundled sticks out. You had a storm that blows through, you bundle them all together, you put them at the curb. We'll come get them once a month during those months. It's a two-man operation. In 2024, we went back and Parks and Forestry keeps statistics on how many hours they spend collecting green yard waste. In 2024, they spent a little over 1,800 hours collecting material. So there's a couple of breakdowns on how that went. So from March to May, some hours, June through August, pretty consistent. Even through November, it's pretty consistent on our hours spent, and then as you would imagine, dramatically drops off in the months of December through February. And then it's a pay-for service. So you come into our utilities office, you buy a sticker. If you want to put it on your can, you put your material in your can. You can buy bags from us. They're brown bags that have a City of Sylvania logo on it. You can put as much as you can pack into that. We'll collect that as well. We do not offer a toter service at this time. We don't have a mechanism to offer that to our residents. So our customer basis, this was really important to kind of set the foundation for how this shaped up. We collected data from June 8th of last year through July 19th. So we did 6 weeks, which means 3 full rounds of program service in our kind of heavy use periods of time. We ended up finding that Tuesdays, no real rhyme or reason why, but Tuesdays were our heaviest service. But we make anywhere between 1,050 and 1,100 stops every 2 weeks. That's how many people we hit. To give you an example of our refuse and recycling program, we have 6,028 customers. So if you do the math really quick, less than 20% of Sylvania residents are using our Green Yard Waste program. So what's really surprising to me, I actually thought more would use it than they do. Most people, it turns out, are good cutting their grass and leaving the clippings on the yard. Less than 20% want it bagged and taken care of. So that was interesting to me. We actually were able to take our GIS mapping and plot all of those points. So every service stop that we made during those months, we put a data point down for the address that it was collected. So not expecting you to read that on the screen, but gives you a general idea of our geographic limits in town, and each black dot on there represents a service stop. So we got a feel for where in town people are using the service the most. And then that's just the raw data that we broke down during those service periods. So basically, we averaged around 557 stops during our Schedule A program, which is in 1 week, and Schedule B would be in the next week. And then we just started over. So pretty well distributed, not too bad, but that's where the 1150s to the 1050 to 1100 stops for the program came from, was that data set right there. So we've talked about Fleetio, real quick sidestep here. Fleetio, we were able to put every piece of equipment and vehicle that we own into the software system, and also upload all of the legacy maintenance work that was done on all of our vehicles. Not expecting you to read that, but that's just a little snippet of what we had there. So we had every maintenance record that we did on the existing Green Yard Waste truck that we had. Turns out that we spent about $62,500 in maintenance on that truck for the 15 years that we've had it. So pretty cool feature to be able to go back and actually pull exact service records for the vehicle. So option 1, let's walk through the options that we have here. Privatization. So again, we had interest in the program, so we did some shopping with a couple of vendors. All of them quoted changes in service. So that means collecting April 1st through October 30th with nothing else. Basically a 7-month collection service, nothing in November through February. That's pretty standard, what all of them had asked for. Didn't want anything to do other than those months. We did learn too, we're one of the only communities that do offer December through March service. Not many other communities do that. We're one of the few that do. Again, no service November through March. 2 trucks, 2 days per week. So the vendors were gonna get into our towns. They were gonna run 2 trucks per week, and then they were gonna hit it with 2 trucks and then get out for 2 of those days. And they were not going to do bi-weekly service. They were gonna do weekly service. Okay, so a little bit change in how that would look. And they can collect anything. They can collect cans, they could collect bundled sticks, they can collect bags, they can do toters. Whatever you put at the curb, they'll take. But what was interesting with this is none of them wanted to be responsible for individual pay of service. And what I mean by that is, Brian uses the service and Sean doesn't, they don't care. They're gonna run the town and they're gonna charge you for all 6,028 units that you have in town. So really big deal. So in essence, you'd have 80% of your electorate, so to speak, or your residents, so to speak, paying for a service they do not get. So one of the big issues with that. Sure, they could make more use of it, sure. So the annual costs ranged from about 100,000 to 190. Didn't want to be very specific, but that was the range of estimates that we were giving. And again, assuming all 6,028 units are getting charged for the service. So that would require no city staffing cuts, right? We're not suggesting going to a privatization mode and then cutting two people that are in the existing operation. This would be keeping city resources allocated as we currently have. Okay. Option 2 was the toter option. That's kind of the look of what that vehicle looks like. We've seen many of those through town with Republic as our refuse and recycling provider. It has it's called a Corrado can on the front of it, which is the red tipping bucket. So that thing grabs the toter, puts it into the red bucket in the front, and then that whole unit goes up and then tips from over front. Very expensive vehicle, $515,000 was our last quote that we received from a vendor on that type of truck. Again, this would go back to our existing program, our existing service. So bi-weekly collection, April through November, call-in service only December through March. One truck, one man. So you drop a body off with this operation. And then that other body that you drop off would be reallocated in the department. So toter only collection. So if that was the option you were going to move forward with, there's an initial $75,000 cost to buy the toters with that option. But here was the key problem with this one. If that piece of equipment breaks down, there is nobody who will provide you with a rent-a-truck. So use Clum, use Stevens, all of those have a fleet of these types of vehicles in the system. One breaks down, they bring another one in and they cover the service. In this particular model for us, we have nothing. We checked rental options in Michigan, we checked rental options in Indiana. We checked rental options with individual private vendors. Nobody was interested in this. So you'd be left with a very expensive piece of equipment that is going to go through service, and you can't service the toters that are sitting at the curb. For Eric and I, that's a pretty big fatal flaw. That's hard when you don't have any redundancy to the system that collects. Becomes really difficult. And option 3 is the one that we currently have. So 2-man rear load truck. That's what it looks like. This one in particular that we shopped, we pushed hard on the vendor over the winter months and asked them if there's a way to put a grabber arm type device on this. And they said, yes, of course you can. You can put a rear load toter thing that will grab it and put it on. We actually reduced the truck footprint than what you saw in September as well for this one. It was $282,000 in September. This one is a smaller unit. It's 11 yard from a 20 yard. And the cost is down to under $200,000 for the truck. Again, same thing that we currently do, bi-weekly service, call in during December through March, 2-man operation. And the added service with this one, if the truck was purchased, you can add toters. So if a resident decided, I don't want to do bags and stickers anymore, I just want to get a toter, there you go. We can service it with that type of unit. Okay, not expecting you to read that on the screen. You have handouts that are in front of you though. So we did just an expense analysis. And again, we eliminated option 2 for the redundancy of the truck power. Not comfortable recommending to go forward with that when we know equipment issues are going to happen. We had $62,500 of equipment issues with hydraulics and everything else on these trucks. They're hard used, they're hard trucks, so there will be periods of time when they're gone. So not having that ability to replace it with option 2 was a fatal flaw for us. So if you go through option 1 and option 2, option 1 is at the top with privatization. At the top end, we did our contract with the low amount and our contract with the high amount. And so as you step that out over the 15-year cycle of the vehicle, you kind of get how much that contract would be for either of the vendors, if it was on the low end or if it was the high end. So starting out at 100 on the low end, you'd end up at about 150 by the time you got out 15 years. Do the same thing with the high end contract. Start at 190 and run it out, you're about at 280. So if you took the average of those and said, okay, if we do try to go for a privatization contract and don't bet on the low, don't bet on the high, somewhere in the middle may be where this contract sits. and you step that out for the 15-year cycle, the yellow bar is your cumulative cost as you go. So to do privatization over the 15-year term, the city's expense would be about $2.5 million, just a little bit short of that. Same thing for option 3, only it's a little bit different, right? We're not paying just privatization costs. So we have, let's just look at column 2026 as a starter. So we've got our truck cost, which we cited was $193,000. We're not buying any toters. The residents are not buying any toters, so there's no expense there. We spend about $22,000, a little over that, on bags and stickers every year in this program. We have 2 vendors that we use, so that's the amount that we spend every year for that. So that's an annualized cost. And then our labor below was based on the data that we collected, assuming 1,800 hours of servicemen for 2 hours. That's our rate. That's in our negotiated AFSCME contract at $53.49. That's in our AFSCME contract for our labor rate for our public works servicemen. So the labor is about $96,000. So add those 2 things up, and the first year total is $311 for option 3. And again, cumulative is your green bar down there. So if you go year over year, you'll drop off the truck purchase, but we did include some truck costs, some truck maintenance costs for every year. So you see 3,500, 3,500, 3,500, and then a jump in 8. If you actually add years 27 through 2040, that equates to about $65,000 to $65,000 in maintenance costs. So those are assumed and spread out evenly over the cost of the truck. Won't happen that way, but for modeling purposes, it's a good way to do it. So again, green bar cumulative, as you kind of see those numbers start to kind of flip with each other right around 2037, so almost to the end of the cycle. Slight benefit for doing the option 3 method, which is 2.4 instead of 2.5, so about $150,000 to $200,000 difference. So nothing earth-shattering in those numbers. Slight benefit to doing it with option 3. The thing that doesn't make option 1 as advantageous to us is, if you're going to go to the privatization route, you're not cutting city staff, right? That's not what the service director would recommend. So if you could cut service staff and get rid of those 2, then privatization becomes much more advantageous and better cost effectiveness for us to do. But I'm not going to do that with interchange beautification coming up, with downtown phase 2, with other things that are green, or other green programs that we're doing in our Parks and Forestry program. So for us, for me at the service department level, I think option 3, even though slightly beneficial, is still the way to go. Long way to get around to basically the same result. But that's kind of where we came up at. Privatization is hard for me when you're asking 80% of your community to subsidize the program that doesn't use it. I think that was shocking to me to learn how few people use it.
So what about what happened? You struck the toters.
Yeah, so the toter option was with the truck. We struggled to get anybody who would provide us with a replacement truck when it goes down for maintenance.
No, I thought there was a toter option with option 3.
There is, yeah, there sure is. But it's nobody who's buying it though. So that would be resident provided. So if Patrick wanted to say, I'm done with this bag stuff system, I want to go get a toter, go buy one, we'll pick it up for you. No problem.
So where are you going to get the toter?
You can get them at Lowe's, Home Depot, anywhere you want to.
So
it's not required, it's an option.
I understand. So the old trash can that we're using now, would that still be?
You can still use it. Mm-hmm. Yep. This is only an add to. You can use the can, you can use bags, you could even use the toter with this truck.
And you're going to retrofit this truck with?
No, it comes with it. It comes with it. Yep, comes with it.
There's no size specifications for the toter?
There will be, of course, yeah. There are some specifications that go with it. So the way, Ms. Westphal, you would handle that is say, hey, Green Yard Waste Program this year, new to the service, it'd be toters, and anybody who's interested in the toter, you can go to any home improvement store, so as long as it meets X, Y, and Z on the specification.
Sticker too?
Would help pay for the program. Yep, just as you would your can. Yep, just another mechanism of collection.
You mentioned the stickers and the bags. It's a cost of $22,000. How many stickers and bags do we sell?
Great question. I didn't bring the actual stats with me, but in terms of dollar amount, when it comes to revenue, about 80% of the program is sticker based, and bag based, and about 20% of the program is sticker based. So much more people buy bags and put those at the curb than they do put cans with stickers on at the curb.
Well, how does that
That number's not on here.
Yeah, revenue is not included in this. This is just expense.
right,
This is
so,
just expense.
but that would give us
An offset.
Yeah, so to give you an example of how much revenue we pull in from the program each year, we do about $70,000 a year.
Okay.
Between bags and stickers.
bags and stickers.
So-
Much more heavily.
But I think that's pretty significant to have on here because we're not gonna get that with privatization.
Right.
Right.
You know, for me, if I'm a resident and I have a can, or I use bags, let's say I use bags exclusively, which most of the people do. I might go get a sticker once a year and pay for the whole year of service and buy the can outright and have the upfront cost, and then get rid of the bag stuff altogether. And just use my can. That I think would probably be a more cost-effective way. More people may look at doing that, you know, in the future, but certainly up to each resident to choose how they want their. And not everybody can store a toter in their garage. You've got two already, right? You've got refuse and recycling. You're adding a third. If you have a 2-car garage, that becomes really difficult. Where you're going to put it? So I don't. It's kind of a very, very individualized choice with how you want to do that. But
Is the same size toter as our,
could be. You can have a smaller one too. You could have a bigger. You could have the same size one or smaller. Yep. Or you want a bigger.
And then Mr. Shaw, you mentioned this truck is 11 yards versus 20 yards capacity wise. Are you guys
No problem.
not at capacity now where it's?
Nope. Not a problem. So, big circle to get back to where we started, but sometimes that's how it goes.
Mr. Murphy, may I ask a question?
Hey.
Couple questions. First, you mentioned $70,000 a year worth of sticker revenue, correct? So it's
Sticker and bag.
sticker and bag, so it's 70 grand a year times 15 years. That's a substantial dent out of
Yep.
the
Yep.
$2.3 million, right?
Absolutely.
Second question. You mentioned that we don't have the fatal flaw in the front loading toter alternative option, whatever that option was, option 2.
Option 2.
So do we have the same potential flaw because the truck is the truck, it still has the possibility of breaking down? Is that not an issue?
We do exactly what we do now, which is we get a dump truck with our front loader, and with 2 guys, we can throw the cans in the end bucket that sits down real low, and we can go and service the system. It's exactly what we would do now. With a toter that could be 2, sometimes 3 times the weight as an individual can or bag, it's really easy for guys to still muscle those bags and those cans. The toter becomes very problematic. I've put Green Yard Waste in my toter at home, and I can trust you. 2 guys are not picking that up on May
That
Day.
said, if somebody gets a toter because of this arm feature, you guys would just have to muscle through that, or?
Yeah, but I mean, the ones that Republic has, you know, that service your existing toters, they're no problem. I mean, they'll tell you what the weight limit on is, but those things can pick up 350 pounds without a problem.
Obviously, if the truck broke down.
Yeah. You're right though. That's exactly a good point. Yeah, that's a good point.
Cool.
Any other questions?
Yeah, does anybody else have any other questions? And then for the purposes of tonight's meeting, this is strictly informational.
But looking at steps ahead, so we have to, we will be recommending option 3 unless we hear otherwise. That leads us to a couple of things. Number 1, we have our Green Yard Waste contract that's up for renewal. That expires September 30th of this year. Regardless of any of these options that we're doing, I will have that contract back in front of you for contract modification number 3. They had very good service with Sylvania Compost, A&J. The intent is to continue that arrangement. They like taking our material. It's been very good to us too in the advent of Toledo Memorial Park's decision to end our green yard waste site that we had up there. So that'll be one thing that you guys will see. And the second thing will be the truck purchase. So we obviously need to come back to city council. We allocated, if you recall, the higher end of the truck purchase in our budget because we weren't sure which option we were gonna go. So there's $400,000 or $500,000 in the Parks and Forestry account for the bigger truck should we have needed it. We obviously don't need that. We're recommending under $200,000 for the truck purchase. So it'll be less, but we'll have to come back and get an authorization for the truck purchase.
Okay,
And then lastly, I need to, one more thing real quick too. Refuse and recycling contract is up as well. So I need to start my letter of interest process to solicit bids for that. Knowing that we probably will not be going this way and including potentially green yard waste in a privatization contract, I'm now free to go ahead with that refuse and recycling contract with green yard waste out of it. And I can just move forward with a solicitation just for refuse and recycling. And I have to come back to council for that too.
Was there any consideration of just stopping the program?
There is certainly that argument you could make when under 20% of your community doesn't use it.
I can't go home if we.
I don't think you get that recommendation out of me.
Oh, you're making that recommendation?
Or my wife? So,
Do we need a motion for this to committee or? No, okay,
think so.
just strictly.
Just for, yeah, I will be back at a later council meeting with some of the items that I had mentioned before, so.
All right,
appreciate it.
any other questions? Anybody?
I've got one,
Sure.
actually. So just for my own clarification, for option one, you mentioned that they would only have service from, or there wouldn't be any service from November to March under that version. There is, I mean, from an earlier one, there's 133 hours that are already going towards that now. Would that be supplemented somehow if option one were to move forward? Like, would we still offer a way to pick it up, or do we just tell people you have to hold it until
So you hold it.
spring?
And Ms. Dow, you make a very good point. I mean, that's something you could do with any of the options, even if it's city provided. Should we want to save a little bit of cost on the program and we don't want to offer the service November through March, that's an option we can do. We can let that truck sit for 4 months of the year and just run it for 8 months. I mean, we certainly can do that. We haven't quite gotten that far yet. I don't know if that's I haven't checked any temperatures on that just yet, but I will say from a community standpoint, after doing the research, we do offer among the best green yard waste programs in the area. Nobody offers that service except pretty much us. So it is something, if you were going to cut on some expenses, that is something you could strongly look at.
Or maybe it's 7.3% of the hours, maybe at some point you offer an extended season sticker or something of that nature that's not out of season or something of that nature.
I know I like having a spot to put my Christmas tree.
Yeah, that's a good point. Christmas tree service wouldn't be impacted. We would still offer that service.
Oh, okay.
No problem. So,
Okay, well, with that said, I know we got something else coming up at 6, so a motion to adjourn this meeting.
so moved.
Oh, second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Awesome, so we are done at 5:59.
Good evening. It's Monday, May 4th, 2026 at 6 p.m. This is a committee of the whole meeting of Sylvania City Council. Our topic this evening is immigration ordinance number 75, 2026 and resolution number 4-2026. Present this evening are council members, myself, Mary Westfall, Marcus Hanson, Doug Hanem, Brian McCann, Lindsay Stowe, Patrick Richardson, and John Murphy. Also from administration, we have Mayor Mark Fry, Law Director Leslie Brining, Service Director Joe Shaw, Clerk of Council Claudia Witkowski, HR Manager Laura Smith, and Captain Hugh Baker. I think I've got everybody. We do have a few guests in the audience and a few maybe students, are you? That have just joined us, and so welcome to all who are here. And with that, I would like to begin by adding an agenda item to this. As you know, the meeting was set with ordinance 75, 2026, and resolution 4, 2026, and any other business to come before the group. Prior to starting that discussion, I'd like to add an update and discussion on the initiative petition and the proposed ordinance for the city of Sylvania, which is entitled Sylvania Resource Conservation and Equal Access Ordinance. There's quite a lot to update the group on, so I'd like to add that to this evening's agenda. Is there a motion to add an update and discussion of the initiative petition to the May 4th, 2026 Committee of the Whole agenda?
So moved.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded to add this item to the agenda. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, and we'll have that discussion following the one that we initially had planned. So let's begin with the discussion of the legislation that City Council asked administration to prepare to address how the city will interact with federal immigration enforcement agencies. Administration prepared two pieces for us, and they were shared with us in our last meeting. Again, those are the ones that we shared before, ordinance number 75-2026 and resolution number 4-2026. All members of council did have the opportunity to review the proposal and the legislation and submit their comments, suggestions, and recommendations to our law director. And I've asked the law director to provide a high-level overview and update on any changes there. She did send out an amended version of the legislation, in particular of ordinance number 75, 2026. So if you just share with us a little detail on what was amended in there based on comments you received from council members.
Sure, thank you, Mrs. Westfall. The changes were pretty minor, I would say. In section 2, there was just a capitalization of law. Section 3, we added the word peacekeeping so the section now reads: if federal immigration enforcement efforts are underway in the city of Sylvania, the Sylvania Police Department may provide peacekeeping, crowd and traffic control as set forth in Sylvania Police Policy 413, immigration violations. Let's see, turning back to section 4, deleted are implemented. That seemed to be, we specifically listed the policies and then just deleted that. Section 7, that was very cumbersomely worded. There were double negatives, so just deleted non-immigration related suspected, so that it just reads necessary for the investigation or prosecution of a criminal offense. As so that was section 7. Section 8, again, it was just a little too wordy, so just deleted a phrase so that it now reads: the city shall not enter into any agreement, contract, memorandum of understanding, or similar arrangement hereinafter agreement without the approval of city council unless such agreement is required by state or federal law, which is consistent with our practices. And then section 9 just now reads: the director of public safety shall retain primary authority for the implementation, interpretation, and operational application of police department policies and procedures. So those are really all of the changes they have.
Thank you very much. I want to extend a thanks to all of our council members who did take the time to review this and give their input to the law director in advance. I think that was very helpful, and thanks to the law director for accommodating those amendments. So open to discussion on ordinance number 75, 2026. Any additional comments or feedback from members of council? I personally feel comfortable with this legislation. Again, I extend a thanks to administration for preparing this. It is what we asked of you, and it's very helpful to have this kind of information clarified at this point. So, again, I don't know if anyone else has any comments or questions.
I'll make a comment. It feels like this is a very good right-sized solution for the challenges that we heard about this issue. I appreciate that it works both with the existing policies that we have, but also gives the room for us to be aware if policies were to change so that we can make calls as they become relevant.
Thank you, Ms. Stowe.
I have some comments as well. So, you know, we heard both, in two meetings from the community, and we heard both sides of this. You know, and unfortunately, I just don't think it became which side are you on? And I don't think that's the approach that as council we should be taking. It's not a take it or leave it type issue. It's a let's develop a solution that works for most. And I think that the way this is drafted, that accomplishes that.
If there's no other comments, I would ask if there is a motion to recommend advancing ordinance 75, 2026 to this evening's city council meeting.
I'd motion for that.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to advance ordinance 75, 2026 to this evening's city council meeting. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries and this legislation does advance. Next, we have resolution number 4, 2026. Again, administration shared this in advance. I don't think that the law director received any feedback on this. Again, this is something that is really just more of a value statement of our city. This is nothing that's really law, legal law that's being implemented, but it was something that I think based on all of the feedback from our community members and all of the conversations that we each had individually via email and personally, that we just thought it would be helpful and appreciate administration's efforts in putting this together. Is there any comments, questions, anything with regard to resolution number 4, 2026?
Ms. Wessel. I believe this is a good statement in follow-up from our discussions with the community and council in general, that this states, as we all, I believe, feel about the community and how we interact with the community. So I think it's a good measure just to communicate to the community what our feelings are, what our thoughts are, and where we stand.
Thank you, Mr. McCann. I agree. I think that was well said.
I would just add to that, you know, on a national level, there's a lot of rhetoric that you said is a broad term, but about immigrants and, you know, pick the adjective that they describe as the person that comes to our country for whatever reasons they come here, and sometimes they're overly nefarious sounding, and I don't think that that's necessarily the case. I think most people are coming here for well-intended purposes, and I think that's why there was so much support, Marcus, as you said, where it became kind of a either side of the aisle thing, that to support something that addresses the dignity and the humanitarian side of that. I think this resolution paired with the first ordinance really does help to say, hey, listen, people deserve to be treated like human beings and treated with respect. Also, we need to be able to enforce our laws as they're written. So I think the two together go well together.
Thank you. Anything else?
I'll add something too.
Of course.
I think this resolution does a really nice job of reiterating how Sylvania has a long history of being a place that is welcoming and a place where you feel safe. And I think it is a nice fit for the fact that it reiterates how the intention of the community of Sylvania, while also still allowing our experts to be able to make the field that needs to be made in the moment when maybe a pause could be a life or death issue. And I think it aligns nicely with I believe it was 3-4 years ago when we passed the 5 Eyes of inclusivity. It shows the intention, and then of course we followed up with working with the Ability Center to make sure that Main Street was an accessible place for everyone to go to. So I think we have a long history of showing that while the resolution may not be legally binding like an ordinance is, we have a history of showing that our intentions and our actions do align with them.
Thank you. Hearing no other comments, I would ask if there's a motion to recommend advancing resolution number 4-2026 to this evening's city council meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to advance ordinance number 4-2026 to this evening's city council meeting. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, and this will be advanced to this evening's meeting. So now that brings us to the discussion of the initiative petition, and I do know that, thanks to the administrative staff that put the initiative process in front of you today, as well as a copy of the initiative petition to make sure you've all got a copy of all these details. There's been a lot that's happened, so, stick with me while I walk us through it. The initiative committee did submit their signatures to the clerk of council on April 20th. The law director then submitted those signatures to the Board of Election for certification on April 21st. The law director sent the initiative process and timeline to all council members in advance. That's the sheet that was also in front of you. Most significantly, what you should know is that we are required to provide a response to the Board of Elections by May 30th, 2026. And the response needs to be one of three things. Either we pass the legislation as written, we amend the legislation and pass it, or we reject the legislation. So as an update, the petition signatures have not been certified yet, and that's due to the election, the primary election, and is causing a delay. We just learned today that the Board of Elections anticipates certification of signatures will not happen till the last week of May. So that means that we need to move forward in anticipation of that May 30th deadline. And any action that we would take this evening would need to be, if we take any action, would need to be contingent upon the certification of the signatures. So with that being said,
Mayor, could you clarify what you mean by that?
so what that means is if there's any action taken this evening regarding the three options here to pass, amend, or reject the legislation, it would be contingent upon certification of the signatures.
So there would be no action taken,
There would be
no enforceable action taken tonight.
until the certification of the signatures.
Would that be a springing action, or would we have a council, or would we have let me finish, or would we have act at our next council meeting?
Well, I was gonna have Leslie speak to this. Yes, I do believe that, but maybe you can explain what happens at the next one.
Yes, the action will be at the next council meeting. There's just the discussion and maybe a motion tonight. There's no legislation prepared, which is how council has to respond to the initiative petition that
Okay,
was
so we're
submitted.
not gonna take an action, and then, subject to certification, that would only become effective upon that certification. I don't think we can do that.
I don't think we can either, but we could, so we need to give the Board of Elections a little bit more time.
I
For some
understand.
reason
That's
they-
what I meant about the springing
Yeah,
effectiveness, okay, we're not gonna do that,
no,
okay.
there's no legislation is going to be passed tonight. I mean, there's none prepared.
All that we're gonna do is make a decision about which area the group wants to go based on contingent upon certification, and then administration to prepare legislation as appropriate that would come to the next meeting.
But if the Board of Elections is not certified yet by the next meeting, and then the deadline is before the next meeting,
We have to have a special.
That's
meeting.
special, okay.
Yeah, that's what my
Got it.
recommendation would be. But
But we really can't do
hopefully-
that until we know they're certified.
Sure.
Okay, just to be clear, so if they certify these signatures on May 28th, we're gonna have a special meeting on the 29th or 30th. Okay, got it.
I believe that will be the case.
Are we able to schedule a tentative meeting in anticipation of that potential?
yeah,
That's a good idea.
yes, at the next meeting,
At the next meeting, we
hopefully
would do that.
the primary will be passed, hopefully the database will be unlocked and they'll be able to check the signatures. That's the reason.
I could
so.
see it being challenging to get all of us together
Yeah,
on that short of notice.
yep. I don't disagree, but
So, but our goal tonight is to make a determination about where council members stand. And if, what we're thinking at this point in time, and asking administration to prepare legislation for the next meeting. Correct. Is that correct? Okay.
yes.
And anything that happens would be contingent upon the signatures being certified. Right. Okay. May need help with that motion if there's a motion this evening. So just as an informational item, please know that once the initiative petitions were submitted, keeping in mind that we face that May 30th deadline, to respond, I personally reached out to all of the initiative committee members to ask if they would consider amendments. I did indicate that they may be material amendments to the proposed legislation to go on the ballot. And I received very kind remarks back from all of them saying thank you from each of the members. So they were very respectful. But at the same time, no one responded to my direct inquiry about whether they would consider amendments to the legislation. So at some level, no answer is an answer. So no response to that inquiry, from my perspective, suggests that there is not openness to consideration of amending the legislation. So that leaves council in the position of fully accepting the proposed ordinance as submitted or rejecting the ordinance and sending this to a vote. And it appears to me that the initiative committee wants this to go to a vote. And that is certainly our democratic process. And so I'm totally fine with that. Certainly, if this council wants to get into a big discussion of amendments anyway, we certainly can do that. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I definitely would say I think their response was a clear indication to us of their willingness to accept amendments. So with that said, I'm not 100% sure where all council members and where my colleagues are on this issue. I do want to be very clear about where I am on this issue. So hang with me a little bit while I try and walk through this. There's been a lot of confusing information on this in 2 meetings, many phone calls, many emails. I've tried to listen with an open mind to our constituents. I've tried to really ponder the best path forward. And at this time, I feel like it's important to clarify a few points that really influenced my decision on what I think the next steps on this issue should be. First of all, I think a lot of these are things that you're clear on, but I just feel better if I make sure that this is what I understand. First, can the city prevent federal immigration authorities from coming into the city of Sylvania? Absolutely no. Cities cannot prevent federal agencies from operating their jurisdiction. With that said, please know that the city of Sylvania has not had a request from ICE. Second, is the city resources being used to support immigration? Are there city resources being used to enforce immigration? No special or additional resources are allocated for that purpose. Our police department has a budgeted responsibility to keep the peace and manage traffic, whether they're assisting a federal agency, a neighboring department, or providing safety at a community event or demonstration. Their role is to ensure public safety. That responsibility is already part of their duties, and it is budgeted annually. So to be clear, there is no additional cost. It is the police department's job and primary responsibility to keep the peace, and that is always part of the budget. Third, can the city detain an immigrant without cause? No. No one, immigrant or not, can be detained by the Sylvania Police Department without lawful cause. If an officer stops someone, they follow the same procedures for everyone. They check for outstanding warrants and act only if there is a lawful basis to do so. A judicial warrant is a written order signed by a judge authorizing law enforcement to take specific legal action. Without lawful authority, detention does not occur. Fourth, there has been some discussion about police liability in certain circumstances, suggesting that there could be increased liability in this if there was ICE present. I want to be clear that the police have liability every time they pull someone over or take action. Any actions police take are subject to court review and can be challenged. So again, that is something that is very real in any circumstance. I want to say I have great confidence in our police department. Our police department policies are thorough and comprehensive and address these issues and many others appropriately. And they've all been shared. They've been shared with all of our council members and are posted and available to the public. Our officers are well-trained, they're skilled in de-escalation, and they're committed to protecting everyone in this community. Their job is to enforce state and local criminal laws and to keep the peace, nothing more, nothing less. I take great pride in the exceptional service provided by the Sylvania Police Department, and I am committed to avoiding any actions that could create confusion. Finally, there is the question of, does this legislation create a sanctuary city? A sanctuary city is a municipality that limits or denies its cooperation with the national government in enforcing immigration law. I am sure that the initiative committee will say, no, the proposed legislation does not create a sanctuary city. With that said, I am not a lawyer. I am not a legal expert in any way, but I believe the proposed legislation creates confusion and lack of understanding and may put the city of Sylvania at additional risk with the U.S. Department of Justice, which, in my opinion, is not in the community's best interest. It's unfortunate that the initiative committee was not interested in considering amendments to this initiative. With that said, I cannot support the initiative legislation as presented, and I will be voting to reject it. So with that, I know I didn't, I don't know that everybody else is prepared, but I knew what I wanted to say. I thank you for listening and for the courtesy of letting me make these remarks, and I'd like to hear where other members of council are.
Mrs. Russell, I don't know if it's safe to assume that they're not open to amendments. And I only say that because I agree that the question wasn't answered, it would seem that way. But if we were to go back and say, we're amending your proposal to match 75-2026, and then give them an opportunity to make a decision, yes or no. And I'm not suggesting we do that, that's just an example.
Well, I think that's up to council. I mean, I think we have a sense of where, I mean, we've listened through a meeting and a half, and we've got comments. So I think, again, that's a decision of council, that's not my decision. I think that it would be quite a leap to think that they would want to accept that, but certainly we can offer that if that's what.
Well, and I guess the reason I'm saying that is we've just narrowed it down to, do we pass it as written or do we reject it? And I don't know, I mean, is that the right, that may be the right way to go, you know, but we're eliminating any possibility of amendment.
I think they eliminated any, that's my opinion. I believe they eliminated any possibility of amendment. But what I would say is, again, this is a decision of council. We are representatives, elected officials, and at some point, we have been put in these seats to make the tough decisions. This is not an easy decision. This is a decision that will be very difficult to find agreement across the board. Many of our friends and colleagues will have differing opinions. I'm open to asking them if they would consider accepting ordinance 75, 2026.
Well, and I guess that if I can have another minute, well, the reason I mention that is I don't understand. So if we were to pass 75-2026 tonight, I don't see what purpose 37-2026 serves.
Except for the fact that they wanted to. I'm sorry, Doug?
Said I could tell you.
Well, I think that is a petition that's out there to go on the ballot, so it doesn't matter what we think if they want it to go on the ballot, right? It really doesn't matter what we pass or don't pass if they've made the decision that they want it on the ballot.
Okay, got it.
I mean, so open to other conversations or comments.
I think something I've been saying from the start is this is obviously something that's very important to a lot of members of the community, hence the amount of people that were a part of those meetings. And when I asked for, and we passed the sort of 90 days to give our experts a chance to come back with what they have presented us, part of the reasoning for that was to give a chance to take a breath, have some cooler heads and not feel like this is being rushed. And if we needed to pass something today, I would be on the reject because the issues I had previously are still in existence in that petition. And I think you did a really good job of articulating a number of those concerns. However, I also would love knowing that this is such an important topic and that the proposed ordinance and resolution may not have had enough time for people to properly have a chance to really look at them and maybe understand how they would work with our policies. Give them a chance to be able to look at and see if there are any amendments we'd be open to. I would lean towards being open to that path as well. But of course, this is a group decision. But if there was willingness to have perhaps a public hearing to discuss the ordinance and resolution, that could be a way to make sure that the public understands what we are passing, so that come November, should the petition signatures be passed, they would have more information to make.
I'm a little confused about what the public hearing would be on.
The public hearing, I would think, would be on the resolution and the ordinance that was presented by after.
So you're suggesting
law
we shouldn't
director.
advance that to the city council tonight, we should have a public hearing about that?
Possibly, I'm looking for opportunities to allow for if there is more feedback to be able to discuss about those two items. I'm throwing it out there as an idea for us to discuss. I'm not sure if that is going to be helpful in not reiterating things that have already been covered, but I don't know, I guess I don't want it to appear like we are rushing anything.
I don't think we've rushed anything, but I think you make a valid point. I think the question is, we've heard from the community. We're clear on the position of the side that supports the legislation and the initiative. I feel like we're all very clear about that. I think we've heard perhaps a little bit less public feedback on the other side, but at some point, again, we've been talking about this since before March 2nd. That's when the first information came out, so.
And then there's also all the way until November then to clear up any confusion between what's been what's been proposed from the law director and the chief versus the.
Right, and again, Ms. Dow, I'd like to hear from other council members, because maybe there is some other council members that feel that's an appropriate path forward. I'm not sure I'm comfortable with it.
Yeah.
But just be transparent, let's see where others
I'm
are.
just curious, yeah, I'm curious, I'm throwing it out there, but if it was at this moment, I would be rejecting it. But I am open to the consideration of amendments.
I think Marcus had a good point, like if the committee if they would accept what we have here, then great. I agree with you, it feels like that wouldn't happen, and just feels like we're too far apart on it. That's my thought.
Ms. Westfall, your comments were welcome and I think well stated. It's been a part of my discussion with the committee and the ordinance put forward that there has not been any conciliation to possible mitigation here or discussion. It's my way or the highway from my perspective. And I had hoped by this time that someone would have reached out to us to potentially work through this. And I have not seen that. So
We reached out to them and
Yes.
we got their response.
I believe their response is my way or the highway. And I stand to reject this ordinance.
I would just say, I stated some of it already, and that is, not to reiterate it, but I think on a national level, the dehumanizing of people is disgusting that we hear. Referring to people as rapists, murderers, drug smugglers, predators, terrorists. I think it's a terrible way to address people with a broad brush for any reason. That said, that risk does exist, you know, as people come across our borders illegally. It is our job as a country to enforce sovereign borders, not in Sylvania, but at a national level, right? We all pay tax dollars, not only for local, but state and federal law enforcement. I feel that it is wholly inappropriate, just as it is to dehumanize people. I think it's also wholly inappropriate to single out a specific federal law enforcement agency and say, we are going to assist these folks, we're not going to assist these folks. And to characterize them as villains is equally as bad as characterizing the people that you're discussing the other way as villains. It's awful. So I 100% am going to reject this ordinance because I think that it is well within our right as a community to do what we need to do to enforce the law locally. And if that means that we use our resources by choice to work with federal law enforcement, if we deem that necessary, that right has to exist for us. And to limit our law enforcement from doing that is a violation of what tax dollars are being spent for that. So for that reason, I can't possibly support this.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Mr. Haynem, I'd like to hear from you. If you got any comments?
I urge the ordinance 37-2026 as proposed in the petition signed by approximately 25% of the registered voters who voted in the last election. Yeah, that's what that means. 10% is about
290.
so it's only
10%,
15. It's only 15%. But we, I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot more
Mr.
support
Hayden,
for
I
that. You asked me.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let me talk. Okay. I will say that I think ordinance 75-2026, and I will, is nothing. It does nothing. Paragraph 1's a commitment that's unenforceable. Commitment 2 is good as far as it goes, but it doesn't address the key issue in ordinance 37, which is non-discrimination based upon immigration status. I don't really have a problem with number 3 because I don't think ordinance 37 prohibits the city from providing peacekeeping and crowd traffic control. I think that's inherent. Paragraph 4 is not enforceable. It's just a positive statement. Paragraph 5 just says we're going to use it. We're going to commit us to use a specific provider of services indefinitely, which I think is a bad idea. I think it's great. We should post the police annual report on our website. I didn't realize we didn't do that already. Section 7 of the ordinance says nothing in this ordinance shall be construed to prohibit, but it allows the city to voluntarily share information and to observe administrative warrants and to observe ICE detainer orders, which I don't think we should be doing. I don't think we should be expending our resources in that. I have no idea what Section 8 means. It says we won't enter into any, it doesn't have any reference to anything, but we're not going to do any contracts without council's approval, which I think is the law now under the, and I don't think administration can go out and sign on to contracts without bringing them to council. My problem with Section 9 is that council forfeits its legislative power and control to the Director of Public Safety on issues of implementation, interpretation, and operational application of police policies. So, I'm gonna vote against ordinance number 75-2026. I'll probably vote for the resolution. But but ordinance 75-2026 does not even brush the topics addressed in the ordinance that's put forth in the initiative, the petition. So I know I don't speak for the committee. I really don't. The committee has their own mind on this, from my discussions with them. And the committee clearly views, based on my discussion with them, ordinance 75-2026 as a nothing burger that has no impact on our approach to immigration in the city. And that's why I'm pretty sure they are gonna wanna go forward with putting the ordinance on the ballot and having a campaign and talking about spending city resources to implement a federal immigration enforcement obligation. I don't think we ought to be spending our money on that. And I don't think we ought to be discriminating against people based on their immigration status. And I think citizens of Sylvania will see that as well. That's why I put together the ordinance in the first place. And so I continue to support it. And I think the degree of public participation tonight in our committee on the whole tells you that the community doesn't think ordinance 79, or what is it, 79? 75-2026 does anything. Because there was no discussion for or against it. The public looked at it and said, what does this do? And that's just like I do. So that's what I feel.
Thank you for your feedback and for your honest interpretation of where you think the committee is. That's helpful, I think, to our council members. So I guess I would look to the council to give me a little bit of direction. I know there was some discussion about asking the initiative committee about whether they would consider ordinance 75-2026 as an amendment to the legislation. We've heard Mr. Hanem's remarks, and I think he was as we know, the author of that legislation. And so I guess I need feedback from you.
So would we have time to do that? If we were to say, do you accept this as the amendment? And if they say no, then we come back next time and accept or reject.
And I think we do have time to do that. We would have to probably come prepared at the next meeting with options.
Yeah.
So that which we've done that before. So we would come prepared with 2 or 3 options depending on what their feedback is.
And it sounds like the majority of council isn't in favor of doing that. I'm just curious.
I'm not in favor of doing it. I don't suspect, it sounds like that's not gonna, it sounds like we're gonna end up back where we are. That's how,
I agree, but my position is let's let them tell us no. I mean, I think you're right. We'll end up right back where we are now.
My interest in it was mostly to see if there was ways that ordinance 75-2026 and resolution 4-2026 could be improved, because we haven't had the public feedback on part of it, and I was just more looking at making sure those were better. I don't think that that the petition legislation would be able to be amended to a level that I would be comfortable with it. So it'd be more about looking for our ordinance and resolution being potentially stronger, but I think it's already a really good ordinance.
So I feel like at this point in time, if we don't need to actually do a formal rejection of this, we can provide the opportunity to say, would they consider this? But I would want us to be prepared to have the options available for pass, amend, or reject at the next council meeting, but then do we need a committee of the
Will,
whole?
I will, nope, we don't need a committee of the whole, we can do that in council. But I will, keep you up to date on the certification. So,
Would they ever, adjust that date based on their delay?
no, that's our
Oh, that's
charter
not-
requirement,
okay.
right?
Okay. All right. Mr. Mayor, anything?
Mrs. Westfall, just one clarification. When you say the options, amend, reject,
amend,
or
or reject.
pass, I'm not sure what you're asking the administration to do regarding amend. What do you mean when you say that?
You know what, I think that if they were to say that they would accept this, then we would be amending the legislation. If they accepted 75, 2026, which we don't expect they will.
So amend in, well, I just want to make sure, so council's thought process is that amend in that regard for preparation purposes means the acceptance of the language in 75, 2026, which is, you've already motioned to advance it to the agenda this evening, correct?
Correct.
Yes. Okay,
But we would not accept any ideas or proposals they would have to amend 75-2026.
I'm sorry, Ms. Stowe, what,
So,
We made that decision when we made the decision to advance this to the meeting.
okay. Okay, I understand.
I want to be clear. We're gonna move this ordinance to the agenda. If we adopt that ordinance, that is not an amendment of the ordinance
initiative.
in
It's not an
the
amendment.
initiative petition.
No.
Is that correct?
That's
Correct,
correct.
that is correct. No. I think what we're trying to sort out is if Mr. Hansen's suggestion and preference to have the committee consider this as an amended legislation to
I understand.
the ordinance. That's the real question here.
Mrs. Westphal, I don't want to overstep. So is that your thought process? I want to make sure I understand this.
Is what my thought process.
I'm looking,
Oh, I'm
sorry, Mr.
sorry.
Haney, I'm looking at Mr.
Talking
Hanson.
about.
That's your thought process, that they would accept 70, the language in 75? Or are you saying that if they were willing to accept other amendments, that could modify your thought process?
My thought was that they accept this in its entirety
Okay,
in place of 37-20.
so you're looking for the administration, in your mind, to reach back out to the committee and ask them that question?
Yes, they never answered the question.
Understand.
Which we could assume that means no,
Right.
but they didn't say no. I guess that's where I'm
I
at.
wish I'd have known that you required that kind of direct response before we got to the table this evening, Mr. Hanson, because I think it would have been easy to clarify that in advance. So, sorry about that.
I think the law director would be happy to reach back out to the committee members if that's council's will, and ask that question if that's what council wants the administration to do.
I feel indifferent about it. In my mind, the response we got was a no. I read it as that. I think that's how I took it. I would be fine.
I think it's fair to say that committee can respond however they see fit. Isn't that fair to say? So we have already agreed to move this ahead to the council meeting tonight. However that goes through, if it is or isn't passed, assuming move it forward where it is going to, but regardless of the case, that committee can make the decision they see fit. I don't think they need to be prompted by us one way or the other. We've already reached out to them. As long as we continue to follow the guidelines we're required to follow by the Board of Elections, to make sure that process stays on task as we're required to do, that committee can respond however they see fit. That's my opinion. I guess it doesn't, they wouldn't ask for it, nor do we need to spoon feed anything to them. They're all grown adults. They can make such a decision on their own.
Well, I appreciate the extra discussion on that. I would probably lean towards rejecting tonight. then. I also am not feeling like it would be likely that they would pass this as it stands, 75-2026 as it stands. I got mixed up and was thinking there might still be room to then adjust that based on their feedback. But I think given where we stand, I would be comfortable with going the rejection route. Thank you for the extra time and discussion on that.
So, go ahead.
This is
Mr.
what,
Mayor.
just to be clear, the administrative staff does not have, we didn't presuppose what council
I
was going to do at
understand.
the committee of the whole meeting.
I
We don't have legislation prepared
No.
to pass, amend, or reject, the initiative. So that won't be on the agenda until the next council meeting on the 18th, correct? So that would not be on the agenda until that point.
Do we need a motion though on that?
Sure, if you'd like to
Um,
make a motion giving direction to prepare legislation for the next meeting, assuming there's certification.
I'm not sure I heard that. I actually think that I heard that we've got some pretty significant reject at this point and not asking the committee for their preference. So I just want to make sure I'm clear on that. Okay,
That's my thought.
okay. So I'm not sure exactly what the motion would be, but I would take a stab at it, and if you could help me get it clarified. So is there a motion to reject the initiative petition proposed ordinance for the city of Sylvania, Ohio, titled Sylvania Resource Conservation and Equal Access Ordinance, contingent upon certification of signatures by the Board of Elections, and ask administration to prepare legislation addressing that for the next council meeting? Is that right?
Motion.
So Sean motioned.
Second.
And Brian seconded. Okay. All in favor, please indicate, all in favor of this as presented, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed, nay.
That would require a roll call even at the committee of the whole, correct? So Claudia, if you do roll call.
Mr. Hanson,
Yes.
Mr. Hanem,
No.
Mr. McCann,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Richardson,
Yes.
Ms. Style,
Yes.
Mrs. Westfall.
Yes. Motion carries 6-1. I thank you all for the discussion and the feedback. I think that was, this is a difficult issue. It's gonna be hard for us all to get to a point where we're 100% comfortable. And that's why, if it goes to the electorate, which it does appear like it likely will, it's the right thing for our community. We'll let the public tell us what they prefer. That's what we're here for. So it's all good. Is there anything else to come before the committee of the whole meeting? Hearing nothing, I'd ask if there's a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Patrick, seconded by Lindsay.
Sean.
I don't
Wasn't
know
me.
Sean or Lindsay.
You didn't second it?
Marcus.
I'm happy to, but
Okay,
I did the
I got
initial
Marcus.
one, not
I've
the
got
second.
Marcus. And this meeting, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting stands adjourned at 6:47.
We'll take 5 minutes
Yeah.
and then. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this Sylvania City Council meeting for May 4th, 2026 to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Hanson,
Here.
Mr. Hanem,
Here.
Mr. McCann,
Here.
Mr. Murphy.
Here.
Mr. Richardson,
Here.
Ms. Stowe,
Here.
Mrs. Westfall.
Here.
All 7 members of City Council are in attendance, therefore a quorum does exist. Moving on to the Pledge of Allegiance, led this evening by Mrs. Westfall.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Moving on to additions to the agenda, I have 2 items that were moved forward by the Committee of the Whole meeting. Mrs. Westfall, if you're okay with that?
Absolutely.
I'll make ordinance 75, 2026 as item 6A on the agenda, and resolution 4, 2026 is agenda item 6B to the agenda after your report.
Thank you.
Do you have any other items that you want to add to the agenda?
You know,
Mrs.
Mr.
Westphal?
Mayor, I am going to request administration to prepare legislation regarding the initiative petition and the vote around that.
We will call that 6C. So we have those, anything else, Mrs. Westfall?
Nothing, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Other members of council? Hearing none, Mr. Shaw,
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Captain Hubaker,
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Smith,
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Briney.
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Hearing that, do I have a motion to approve the amended, or agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much, and the agenda is approved as amended. Moving on to approval of the council meeting minutes from the meeting of April 20th, 2026.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move approval of the Sylvania City Council meeting minutes for the meeting held April 20th, 2026 as submitted.
Second. Motion and a second to approve the council meeting minutes for the meeting of April 20th, 2026 as submitted. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item number 5, a report from the Parks and Forestry Committee meeting held this evening. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At 5:30 this evening, we did have a Parks and Forestry Committee meeting. Those in attendance were myself, Brian McCann, Lindsay Starr, Doug Hanem as well. 5:40 did arrive there. Other folks in attendance were also Mayor Fry, Mrs. Westfall, Mr. Richardson, Mr. Shaw, Ms. Witkowski, Ms. Briney, and Ms. Smith. Some of the things that were discussed, well, the main thing that was discussed was the green yard waste program that was presented to us by Mr. Shaw, talking about some various options that lay in front of us for comparing between privatization and also our existing green yard waste program. He shared with us some information and questions that were asked. Mr. Hanem did ask about totes. Ms. Stowe did ask about, I think it was through the December and February, some of the early pickup times. Myself, I had asked about capacity on the trucks. Mr. McCann did ask about the revenues generated from bags and stickers. The mayor asked about what we would do if the truck broke down, as well as made mention of how the revenues generated from the bags and stickers would help to offset the cost of the trucks if going with option 3. Ultimately, it was determined that our existing program is probably the best route to go, and that would be also buying a smaller truck, which I think is saving $100,000, about $90,000. That was the end of the meeting, which ended at 5:59.
Any questions or comments regarding the report? Hearing none, moving on to agenda item number 6, report from the Committee of the Whole meeting held this evening. Mrs. Westfall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Committee of the Whole meeting was held this evening, beginning at 6 p.m., May 4th, 2026. And the subject was ordinance 75, 2026, and resolution number 4-2025. We did add one agenda item. There was a motion to add an update and discussion of the initiative petition to the May 4th, 2026 Committee of the Whole. Ms. Dow moved and Mr. Richardson seconded, and that motion did carry, so we did add that to the agenda. So that, we began with the discussion of ordinance number 75, 2026. I did ask Mrs. Brining, Law Director, to kind of do a high-level overview of what the amended changes were to that legislation, and she did point by point share that information. And then we opened it up to council members for comments. There were no comments, so there was a motion to recommend advancing the ordinance 75, 2026 to this evening's meeting. And Sean made that motion, and Mr. Murphy made that motion, Mr. McCann seconded, and that motion did pass. Then we went on for the discussion of resolution number 4-2026. And again, there was some discussion among council members about acknowledging that this is not a law, it doesn't carry the weight of a law, but it is more of a value statement. And ultimately, there was a recommendation to advance this resolution as well. Mr. McCann made a motion and Mr. Hanson seconded to recommend advancing resolution number 4-2026 to this evening's city council meeting. With that, we moved into a discussion of the initiative petition, and there's a lot of detail in that, but most significantly, the signatures have been submitted to the Board of Election for certification, and the City Council needs to give a response to the Board of Election by May 30th, 2026 regarding whether we pass the legislation as written, amend the legislation and pass it, or reject the legislation. So we did a quick overview on the fact that the Board of Elections is delayed in certifying those because of the primary election, and they anticipate that the signatures will likely not be certified until the last week of May. With that, we did go on for a thorough discussion, noting that anything that happens going forward, if there's any action, would be contingent upon certification of the signatures. There was a lengthy discussion about the process, indicating that information about process had been at each council member's seat, and we did indicate that I had reached out to the initiative committee requesting feedback about their willingness to accept or consider amendments and indicating that they could be material amendments. And I did get a response from our initiative committee members. All of them said, thank you. And that was all, with no response to the question. So from there, we moved on to a discussion of the next steps. And each council member shared some comments about their position and their thoughts on it. And ultimately, there was a lengthy discussion on whether we should have, whether we should ask the initiative committee to accept ordinance 75, 2026 as an alternate to the legislation they're proposing. So we had quite a lengthy discussion on that. Mr. Hanem did indicate that he had concerns with ordinance 75, 2026, and while he couldn't speak for the committee, he thought it was unlikely that they would support that, that as an amended version of the legislation.
I don't think I said that.
I didn't make it a quote, I just said generally, but you can certainly let us know how
The
you
committee
like
will
that
speak
wording.
for itself.
You said what?
I'm not speaking for them.
You said that, and I thought I said that.
It was a little different, but
Mr. Hanem certainly was not speaking for the committee. I agree with that, and I'll make sure the minutes read that way. So again, we had a lengthy discussion about whether we should reach out to the committee again or not, and there was a big discussion about whether the ordinance 75, 2026 would be accepted by them, and ultimately there was a motion put on to reject the initiative petition proposed ordinance for the city of Sylvania, and to ask administration to prepare legislation regarding that, and that anything that was prepared would be contingent upon certification of signatures by the Board of Education and
Board of Elections.
Board of Elections, sorry, I got BOE written
Yeah,
down.
that's fine.
Board of Elections. Mr. Murphy moved and Mr. McCann seconded, and this motion passed 6-1. I'm correct, 6-1.
I have one comment on that.
Yes,
I don't think council can act contingent on the actions of the Board of Elections. We can discuss this, but we're either gonna act or not. And I don't think I thought the decision was we were not going to act until the Board of Elections got back to us on the certification of signatures. Contingent, use the word contingent, as a lawyer, sounds like a springing event, okay? This, and this happens, there are all sorts of contracts that you enter into and they only become enforceable contingent on a subsequent act. And I don't think that's what this is about at all. And I thought we clarified that isn't what this was about.
so.
It's not truly contingent. It is subject to, we are not gonna act until the board acts. And so I'm concerned with that use of contingency.
I think I would just recommend, we're not going to act until the signatures are certified as provided in the charter.
I think that's fine. I don't have any
But we
problem with
can
that.
still
Yeah.
request administration to prepare the legislation for consideration,
I understand that, yeah.
so. We'll make sure we note those in the minutes appropriately. All right, thank you for the feedback. Okay, so with that,
75, amended 75 first.
we adjourned the meeting.
Oh, sorry.
We
Sorry,
moved to
sorry.
adjourn the meeting. Mr. Richardson moved and Mr. Hanson seconded, and the meeting adjourned at 6:47. So that's that.
Hearing that, we have agenda, thank you, Mrs. Westfall. Hearing that, we have ordinance, agenda item 6A, amended ordinance 75, 2026 for consideration, Mrs. Westfall.
Hold on, my notes. Thank you. So I like to introduce ordinance number 75 2026. All members of council have received in advance. An ordinance affirming the city of Sylvania Police Department's policies, requiring notice to city council of certain policy changes, and reaffirming the city of Sylvania's commitment to community safety, professional law enforcement, and non-discriminatory policing. I move passage of ordinance number 75, 2026 as an emergency measure.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve ordinance 75, amended ordinance 75, 2026 as an emergency measure. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No,
Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Hanson,
Yes.
Mr. Hanem,
no,
Mr. McCann,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Richardson,
Yes.
Ms. Stowe,
Yes.
Mrs. Westfall.
Yes.
The vote is 6-1 to approve ordinance, amended ordinance 75, 2026, and the ordinance is approved as an emergency measure. Thank you very much. Moving on to resolution number 4, 2026 for consideration, Mrs. Westfall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce resolution number 4-2026, reading by title only, a resolution affirming the city of Sylvania's commitment to respecting and valuing all people. I move passage of resolution number 4-2026 as an emergency measure.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 4, 2026 as an emergency measure. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried, and ordinance, or resolution 4, 2026 is approved as an emergency measure. Moving on to agenda item 6C. Coming out of the committee of the whole meeting, Mrs. Westfall, we had a motion, but I think that actually has to come in a council session for
Yes, that's
ordering
correct.
up proposed legislation, so would you like to make that motion?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that we reject the initiative petition proposed ordinance for the city of Sylvania, Ohio, titled Sylvania Conservation and Equal Access Ordinance, and ask administration to prepare legislation.
We have a motion and a second to ask the administration to prepare legislation to reject the initiative that was filed a few weeks ago by the committee. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much, and the initiative will be prepared for consideration at the next council meeting on May the 18th. Moving on to agenda item number 7, we have proposed ordinance 81, 2026, regarding the public defender services. Ms. Brining.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is our annual agreement that we enter into with Lucas County to provide public defender services for indigent defendants charged under city code ordinances. We've been doing this since 2005 and have a really good relationship with them, and they certainly provide the service for much less cost than we could get somebody to do it on our own. So I would recommend its approval. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Ms. Brining?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Hanson?
just curious what determines the cost?
The
So
cost, we are
just
charged.
ranges. It's all
I
over.
know, and there is a big, I mean, it's not a huge increase, but it is a little bit of an increase over last year because we are only charged for those cases that are under the Sylvania Municipal Code. So that was the reason for the big reduction that we had and then, it's my understanding from the director of the Public Defenders Commission that the cases were not calculated correctly last year. So rather than, they're not charging us for those, but they went back and manually checked them this year because they recognized that it was such a significant decrease year over year that they kept track of themselves this year. So that's the reason for the increase.
Thank you.
Other questions for Ms. Brining? Hearing none, we have ordinance 81, 2026 for consideration. Mrs. Westfall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce ordinance number 81-2026. I'll read by title only, authorizing the mayor and director of finance to enter into an agreement on behalf of the city of Sylvania, Ohio with the Board of Lucas County Commissioners for the provision of public defender services to the Sylvania Municipal Court for the year 2026. I move passage of ordinance number 81-2026 as an emergency measure.
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 81, 2026 as an emergency measure. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried, and ordinance 81, 2026 is approved as an emergency measure. Moving on to agenda item 8, Mr. Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, members of council. In front of you tonight is change order number 2 final for our Rune Road, Flower Hospital, Ravine Drive traffic signal project that we did last year. We were here right before the Christmas holiday last year to do change order number 1, which was a lot of balancing. There was a lot of movement, over $100,000 plus or minus, jumping around in that change order, which reduced the contract amount by $10,313.77. Now that we have completed all items on the project, we know what our final cost to doing the work over there was, and I'm happy to report that we have a decrease in the overall contract amount, an additional $474.98. So our final contract amount is $1,250,686.75. Overall, from the bid price, this is 10.8% under what was originally awarded for last year. So great job all the way around on the project. Be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Shaw? Always like deducts.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hearing no other questions, we have ordinance 82, 2026 for consideration. Mr. Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is ordinance number 82, 2026. I will read by title only. Authorizing the mayor and director of finance to approve change order number 2 final to this city's agreement with Helms & Sons Excavating, Inc. for the Haroon Road and Ravine Drive intersection improvement project, decreasing the contract amount by $140,474.98. I make a motion for passage as an emergency measure.
Second. Motion and a second to approve approve ordinance 82, 2026 as an emergency measure. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried, and ordinance 82, 2026 is approved as an emergency measure. Relatively short agenda this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Do we have committee reports that need to come before council this evening? Committee referrals. We do.
You'll note that Leslie did circulate the proposed zoning amendments for downtown. I will admit that I haven't examined those yet. I would anticipate that the next meeting, we'll be scheduling a zoning and annexation committee meeting to talk about that.
Very good. Mrs. Westphal, did you say?
Is there a lemon?
I still didn't
The
get it.
lemonade thing.
Oh, yeah, so we've got Lemonade Day at the next meeting?
They don't wanna do that anymore.
They don't, okay, fair enough.
Sorry, I'm
No,
sorry.
No, it's okay. We had to push, there was a presentation that we were gonna do for Lemonade Day, which is a entrepreneurial effort by some of the elementary school kids, but the meetings this evening pushed that,
Got it.
so. Okay, are there other items then? We'll expect then, Mr. Hanel will be looking, and we could add that to the next meeting's agenda to schedule a zoning and annexation committee meeting. Other items coming before council this
That
evening?
means I gotta do it.
Pardon?
I said, that means I have to do it.
Well, not necessarily, but I mean, it's gonna be on the agenda, Mr. Hanel. That's, that'll be up to you and the
Be
committee.
your accountability partner.
Oh.
Well, you all know I'm prejudiced about this, so we'll go for it.
You have your opinions.
Nothing else to come before the council meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn the council. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried, and we are adjourned until our next meeting at 6:30 PM here in council chambers on Monday, May 18th, 2 weeks hence. Thank you very much, and have a good evening.
I'll take this up so you can read it.
When I first saw your custom notion, I was writing like real. Oh, no. It's not the questions, fine. I had to look
You
back
mean,
again.
sponsorship?
Yeah.
That I can't see why not.
So, now the fun begins, right? For you.
Sleep.
Well,
I don't see why
yeah.
not. Yeah, if you
No,
wanna think about it,
there'll
let me
be
know, or I can
time
run it past
now for me
Leslie
to
and if she
catch
says,
up on
yeah, I'll post
everything,
it.
Let's ask her.
Okay.
Then the fun.
It's supposed to rain
So
tomorrow.
just the sponsorship part?
Looks like
Oh, Marcus.
I got
Oh,
all
you're
the
allowed.
Good to see you.
Typograph.
Yeah.
How's it
I
going?
know it is, probably, it's gonna rain.
Awesome. Not a bull.
How are you?
All right, thanks.
Hey, good luck.
Oh, Tiffany's?
I can just picture faster.
I don't know if it's gonna rain tomorrow. Ask her.
My son better be cutting grass.